This is the Class of 2020 penultimate lecture. We will hopefully have a traditional last lecture in Olin Hall when we all gather for a traditional commencement soon. For the time being, however, we have a really, really wonderful event for you with lots of faculty messages and wisdom to share. We begin, however, with our penultimate student speaker, Lauren Hemingway. I do apologize, there was a slight hiccup with video, so for the first 40 seconds there is just a still image, and then you're able to see the full speech following that. Enjoy.
Good afternoon, class of 2020, and let me be the next of many people to say congratulations. We did it. I know it's different and not at all how we expected, but nothing can take away the fact that we did the work and we are here. Now, I'm going to say what we're all thinking. This is really weird. We should be celebrating our achievements surrounded by our loved ones. We should be stepping into jobs in an economy poised for growth and success. We should be planning graduation trips and hugging our grandparents. But most of all, we should be together. So much has happened since the beginning of this year that it would be really easy to dwell on the negative and our uncertain future. But that is not what this speech is about. This speech is about us. It is about the fact that in this time of uncertainty and doubt, this group, this amazing, diverse, creative, and innovative group of Babson F.W. Olin Graduate School of Business 2020 graduates is prepared to meet the challenges that face us. Never has our ability to think outside the box been more vital. We will be the leaders who create lasting change because we are not afraid to fail. We know each mistake is an opportunity to learn, grow, and try again. I know we are ready to face these challenges because we are entrepreneurs, each and every one of us. Whether after our time at Babson, we go on to work at a business, return to a family business, enter the world of nonprofits, continue our education, or actually start our own business, we are all entrepreneurs. Every program, every format has this spirit. We know not only how to solve problems, but how to make sure we are solving the right problems. In a world that seems to be cracking around us, I can think of no group better prepared to meet this challenge head on. So, class of 2020, I have a quick story for you. In my interview for my MBA, like many of you, I was asked for my definition of entrepreneurship. After thinking about it for a while, I told my interviewer that I don't think entrepreneurship is necessarily starting a business. I think that it is something that you simply care so deeply about that you are willing to give it your all. Well, after 2 years at Babson, my definition has both broadened and become more specific. I still believe in this simple definition. And at the same time, I think that those words have come to define our experience here at Babson as graduate students. At Babson, we care so deeply about things that we are willing to give them our all. The members of this class arrived at various times from a myriad of places with vastly different experiences. We stayed up late reading cases, struggled to get our balance sheets to balance, and learned to work together in groups. We rushed to get from work to class in the evening, juggled our school, work, life, and family commitments, and we even managed to have a little fun along the way. And if that doesn't sound like caring about something deeply or giving it your all to you, look at the screen in front of you. Look at our friends, our family, our amazing faculty, staff, and alumni. We are here together, class of 2020, because this is important. We care deeply about Babson and about each other, and we gave it our all. Congratulations.
Excellent. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. Um, I am so pleased that you were able to share this message, having the student voice, and particularly your message I think is very nice to very nice way to kick this off. Um, I appreciate it. All right. Now we are fully in the swing of this penultimate lecture. Professor Rao, you ready to present your lecture?
Well, I'm here. So, hi everybody. Uh, let me share a screen. Many
Yes.
of you who know me, you know that I'm impotent without a PowerPoint. So Lauren did a great job without a PowerPoint, but sorry, I'm a traditional faculty, so I'm going to use a PowerPoint. Is that all right? So, let me share my screen. Can you all see it?
I think it looks great.
All right. So here it goes. Firstly, a big round of congratulations to the class of 2020. So give yourself a big hand, all of you. So, and usually this is the time. Firstly, I was very surprised that I've been asked to do this, and I'll tell you why I've been surprised. And so I can, once I've been kind of elected to do this, I must say my favorite class ever is the class of 2020, right? So, and but you know what? You know better than that. I'd be lying to you if I were to say that. But you still made it. You made it to the top three, okay? Because I have been here 24 years, and it's only 3 times that I have been nominated for the Kennedy Award. So, I love you, at least in the top 3 classes of all time. All right, so there you go. It's not the best, but the top 3. Uh, so, uh, so congratulations to Jerome for winning the Kennedy Award, and of course to all the other nominees as well, Anirudh, Jack, Lydia. For me, it's an honor to be a part of this group. And again, I told you why I'm surprised, because usually I'm on this list only by default. This year, I think JB retired, so that's why when I saw the list and Kate asked me to go fifth, so what it means to go first to talk, and when you're on a list of 5, it's like the pageant, the beauty pageant. The third runner-up goes first, the second runner-up, and of course Jerome goes last. So how did I make it to number 5 of the list? Is because number 1, JB retired and he's not there. He probably didn't have enough students, or maybe Bob Turner is doing too much administrative work and he did not get elected. So it's usually and even though maybe somebody else is on sabbatical and they didn't make it. So, but still, class of 2020, I love you guys. Is that all right? Okay. I think Lauren brought it up, and we have to address the elephant in the room, and the class of 2020. And those of you who are in my classes, you all know that we keep talking about VUCA a lot. Oh, by the way, I stole the word H, hyper-connected, from Anirudh. Anirudh, that is yours. Okay, uh, so you're all very familiar with this. Those of you who were in my classes, and while we were in our classes this past year, I don't think any one of us would have ever predicted that we would be actually living it a few months later. And so we are experiencing it like never before. And so those of you who kind of know all the nuances of uncertainty and ambiguity, and this is something that probably you've been beaten to death at Babson around, the differences between risk, uncertainty, and ambiguity. And so this is, and if we haven't kind of beaten that into you, probably, shame on us. Okay. But I also say that today the world needs many more Babson graduates than ever before. So you are the ones who will be changing the world. And why do I say this? I'm not saying this in jest. Okay, I truly, truly mean it. And why do I truly mean it? It's because Babson trains uncertainty navigators and the best ambiguity explorers. Okay, not just great risk managers. And you all know what I mean by this, though, especially those who have been in my classes. Okay, and so Babson uh, creates CEOs, founders, leaders who will not only be great risk managers but also amazing uncertainty navigators and ambiguity explorers. And so you're equipped like nobody else. And so you are the chosen few who can go and change the world. And Lauren mentioned about problem solving. Okay, and and the way we do go into the future is either going to be intentional or very opportunistic, or many times it's accidental. Okay, and so I want to kind of make sure I reiterate many of these things that many of you have heard about this, and you know that at the heart of risk management, at the heart of uncertainty navigation or ambiguity exploration is problem solving. Okay, and that's what hopefully we, the faculty, have helped you kind of sharpen your tools of problem solving. And the only thing that is common to even buzzwords, you know how I hate buzzwords, and the innovation is a highly abused, misused word. But innovation and creativity is at the heart of everything that you all have been equipped to do. You came to Babson because you were different, and you chose Babson because you wanted to be different. So at the heart of innovation and creativity is structured problem solving. And again, the way we go into the future is again, many times it's intentional, but mostly it is opportunistic or it is accidental. And those of you who have been in my class, you have been probably bombarded with this picture. Creativity and innovation thrives in times of crises and constraints. Crises, innovation loves constraints. Entrepreneurs are going from crisis to crisis all the time, and so you are very good in crisis management. And so also creativity, at the heart of creativity is problem solving. And all artists understand it. They did not find their signatures, whether it is Botero, Giacometti, or Cobra. They did not instantly go find their signatures as to who they are and make it their own. It is through structured problem solving. And we all know that there is a methodology, there's a journey to structured problem solving. And you all have learned this. Over 2 years, this has been probably implanted in your brain, the Babson methodologies. And so I don't have to say anything more about these. So if you were to say entrepreneurial leaders, Lauren mentioned the word entrepreneurs, but I'm going to kind of broaden this to entrepreneurial leadership. And so if I were to kind of encapsulate what you all are entrepreneurial leaders who innovate your way into the future, which is problem solving at its best. And so for me, if you were to say, Jay, cut the bullshit, cut all the BS out, I would say you are entrepreneurial leaders who are going to be optimistic, who are intentional, very opportunity driven, solution seekers. That's who you are. And so what a great opportunity, what a great time to kind of be in this crisis, because crisis means a point of decision making. And you will see the word crisis, which used to, it has been growing, the word usage inside of Google. And in the last 3 months, it spiked 300% inside of Google, the search for the word crisis. And if you go back to Mandarin, the word for crisis is weiji. At the same time, the same word weiji also means opportunity. And so we at Babson, you all know how much we are so driven by opportunities. And then again, it's all about kind of learning how to identify opportunities, shape and develop opportunities, and capture opportunities. And that's what you all are at the heart of being a Babson graduate. And so COVID-19 has only exposed us, and it has given us more material. It has given us amazing kind of examples of the good, bad, and the ugly of entrepreneurial leadership. And we are seeing amazing entrepreneurial leaders who are amazingly aware. They call people to action. They take action. They escalate things. They make mistakes when there is so much uncertainty and ambiguity around you. You are, as leaders, going to be making mistakes. But it's okay to make mistakes. It is better to act and then apologize. It's better to act and then reverse rather than not act at all. So we have seen these. At the same time, we have seen terrible behaviors on the other side, and it's all around us. Okay? I mean, complete denial, complete, delays, and all kinds of excuses for not doing things, not acting. And so we are seeing that, and there are these examples all over the world. Oh, there seems to be a pattern here. Okay, intentional, perhaps. Okay, so what am I getting at? Is basically entrepreneurial leadership is not heroic leadership. It is not about moving mountains as an individual. It's not about how charismatic or how kind of verbose you are or how beautifully you can speak. It is definitely not politically driven ideology. It is not just military leadership or servant leadership. There are soup du jour types of leadership that are out there, but you are special in a way that you are entrepreneurial leaders. And entrepreneurial leaders are a very different breed. And there are, again, you can go very deep into all of these aspects. And those of you who are in my class, you understand this. You can be an activist or you can be a catalyst. You can focus your attention internally to the enterprise or external to the enterprise. At times you may be a risk manager, at times you may be an ambiguity explorer. And at Babson, I hope that we have at least played a little part in getting your entrepreneurial leadership thought in action, mindset, behavior. Where is your focus and what are your problem solving skills? And so we know that the world moves in this way and you have all these tools. Be intentional, take advantage of this amazing opportunity because the world has so many more problems than we had 3 months ago. And so we have an amazing opportunity to go actually take advantage of this crisis to solve amazing problems. And as Louis Pasteur said, chance favors the prepared mind. The more intentional you are, the more opportunities open up. And guess what? Accidents happen. And good luck. Good luck in your entrepreneurial journeys. Congratulations again. Be optimistic, be intentional, be opportunistic, go solve problems. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Love you all.
Thank you, Jay. That was wonderful. And we are delighted to invite our next lecturer to speak. I'm going to hand over the presenter role to Professor Lydia Palutnik. I think I did.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Kate, is the presenter, is it okay?
You have the presenter rights. We can see your screen and I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. Congratulations, everybody. My name is Lydia Palutnik. I'm a professor of economics. I'm delighted to be here. I was thrilled to be your teacher and see you in all sorts of situations. Some of you who are on the line, I saw you in January in Italy, just before COVID-19 happened, and we were in all the hot spots in every possible meaning of the word. So you can imagine that maybe you can imagine is not great to be an economist these days. There are endless questions such as, are we having a V-shaped recovery after all of this is over? Will we have L-shaped recovery? What is your forecast? When is this all over? I'm super happy that I'm not a macroeconomist. So I don't really know, and I'm not going to answer any of those questions. So I'm a microeconomist, and I thought what I was going to do is share some of the lessons with you from microeconomics. These lessons are from classes that some of you have taken while at Babson, and I am going to give you some of the parallel lessons for life. And I'll just tell you, you'll need all of them and more. And you have the unlucky fortune to get in the market at a time such as this. But, you know, it's a long game, and we all try to play the long game, and we talk about strategy, and this is all about strategy for life. So I have 10 lessons for you, so not too much. And I will just get started if that's okay. Okay. So, lesson number one, you cannot imagine having a talk by an economist who's not going to mention price elasticity. So I want to give you lesson number one from your MBA degree that's going to be helpful for any market. A market with a demand shock like today, or the market where you have an expansion of the business cycle. So price elasticity, anything that has to do with a revenue model, portion of the business model, will be driven by price elasticity. Just because you don't know a lot about price volume relationship and the data is not sitting right in front of you, it doesn't mean you shouldn't invest some of your energies trying to figure out what your price volume relationship is, and at the end of the day, how much power over price you have. Remember always that consumers are not there to pay for your expenses, but they are maximizing utility, and they want to get value for the dollar spent out of the products that they are buying, or services for that matter. Lesson for life, shape and build your uniqueness. Invest in yourself. Your uniqueness, your sets of skills, your sets of competencies, who you are going to give you power to negotiate everything that happens in your professional life, in your career, as you're starting your businesses or not starting your businesses, as well as in your personal life. So work to know yourself and hone in on what drives you and develop those skills. Lesson number two, don't get stuck in a commodity market. Marketing strategy, management strategy, they're all focusing on how to build differentiation against the next player in the market, how to be special, how to be unique. Competitive forces in the markets and dynamic forces in the markets work in the opposite direction. Companies, whether they want to or they don't want to, they get stuck in what we call commodity markets. They're not special, they're the same as everybody else. In other words, their welfare, so to speak, in the market is subject to fluctuations in supply and demand and dynamics of the market. So just because you have and have built market share does not mean you're successful in terms of profitability. What does that mean in terms of lessons for life? Invest in yourself, be special, and be positioned for long learning cycle. In other words, you need to be thinking of yourself as life learners. Think of how you develop special skills and what you will need in order to stay supported over life. Think of your mentors. Think of people who are going to be really, really critically evaluating and providing critical contributions to what you're doing. Your family, your friends, everybody that is going to give you their time, their attention, and reflect on what you're doing but not in a way that gives you a pat on the back, but in a way that really makes you stop and really makes you question whether and how you can do things that you're doing better. Lesson number 3, I call it fixed cost bias, or what we call it in economics is fixed cost is sunk cost. It is irrelevant for decision making. Nobody cares that you have a big, expensive, modern plant that's costing a lot of money. The idea here is to really think of all sorts of practices that I see in businesses, never-ending arguments over how best to allocate overheads and so forth. So what we see is a bias in decision makers, where because we have in the past spent money on something, we feel biased towards not rocking the boat, staying exactly this in the same space. We are risk averse on the downside, much more so than on the upside. And we want to maintain status quo and move along. What does that mean in terms of personal decisions? Tips for life. You're going to fail, hopefully. Okay, like I really hope you fail because that is how you learn. And you have to expect to fail. And when you fail, learn from the mistakes. And then the next part is move on. Do not carry your mistakes with you. This is the fixed cost bias, where we carry our histories, our previous investments, because we've invested into something in the past. It might be business, it might be a relationship. If that is not working for you going forward, as you think about yourself and as you think about the future, you need to reevaluate. So what I like to think of in terms of a fixed cost bias is to really think about how you flip it and think about yourself traveling really light. Have small suitcases. Do not carry your whole life and all of the wrongs and all of the lessons that you've had and where life was unfair and so forth. Do not carry, try not to carry that with you, okay? So fixed cost bias. Next lesson, lesson 4, cooperation is better than competition. We've done a little bit of game theory in some of the economics classes. We've learned about Nash equilibrium. We've learned about prisoner's dilemma, all of those super useful concepts. What do we know about competition? Competition is stuff. And it makes your profits lower. It makes you work hard while you're observing your profit margins go away and go lower and lower and lower. We also know that companies often in intense rivalrous situations compete on price. It is a way of making competition even more intense. So thinking about using the same resources, not to compete, but to put them in a bucket of innovation, what Jay just talked about, to think about how to be entrepreneurial, how to build differentiation, might be a better, more sustainable game in town. What does that mean in terms of tips for life? Pick your battles. You don't need to fight every battle. It is not worth it, okay? It's like cost-benefit analysis. Identify your allies. Think of who your partners could be as you move along through different challenges in life. And think about the fact that life is short. And the more you learn to cooperate, identify whether you can even change the game, play a different game, as opposed to competing and, so to speak, trashing your profitability and opportunities in the market. And again, think for the long term, okay? So cooperation is better than competition. Lesson number 5, double-edged sword of operating leverage. Maybe this is super useful for these days. So what we're saying is that companies that have higher operating leverage are really, really superbly positioned for growth. But when you have a market like today, a demand shock economy, in addition to the virus, what we're going to see is that double side of the operating leverage, where companies that are more leveraged are going to be more exposed to losses. It is going to be harder to make break even. So at the core of this concept is risk return utility function. So at the level of the individual or the lesson for life, what we're looking at is how much risk are you comfortable to live with? How much risk are you willing to take on? Have your eyes opened when you are taking on, for example, debt. When you are really, we often see decision maker, this is at the individual level or the company level, having this optimistic bias. But whatever goes up can also come down. And of course, we didn't know it would come down as much as it did in the last 2 months. But life has, for all practical purposes, given us a very different appreciation of the downside of the economy, which we have never seen before. I'm not that old, but I'm much older than you are, and I've never seen anything similar to this. And it's hopefully one of those once in a lifetime things, but it gives you a different appreciation for the downside and what that might mean for all of our lives. So be positioned for the upswing and also for the downswing in a personal life as well as in a professional life. Lesson number 6, operate tactically.
Lydia, can I interrupt for just 1 second? If you have maybe some windows open over top of your presentation, can you move those down?
I don't actually, but
Okay.
yeah. What
All right.
does it look
Please.
weird on the screen or?
There's a couple of gray boxes that we thought might be,
It's pixelated.
it's just pixelating. Please continue, Lydia.
I don't know how to fix it. I'll take a class over the summer trying to figure it out. Okay, so operate tactically. So daily grind of tactical decision making. We can all imagine how that looks like in the business. All of us have seen it up close in one way or another. But what we're also needing to do in the business is always think strategically. What does that mean in terms of tips for life? Yeah, you have to work hard every day. You need to get up, and things are not looking really great right now. And you'll have to get out of bed and do all the work and think about how you build your skills, how you sell yourself, how you get your businesses going, how you get your jobs going. And some of those choices that you're going to be making are going to be second best choices, just because some of you will have to do that. But at the same time, what you need to also do is have strategic goals in your personal life. And those goals have to do with really, really asking yourself basic questions. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Where do you see yourself 10 years from now? Who are going to be mentors that are going to be helping you along the way? Okay. Learning lesson 7, do not make unchecked assumptions. I see in all sorts of companies and business presentations, people like to use economics jargon because that they think makes them feel a little more sophisticated. I haven't quite figured it out. And so the words that I hear are like economies of scale. This is a luxury good. This is economies of scope. At least half of the times those concepts are used wrong. So please use the data, okay, before you use those big words. I don't know that they are big words, but they get used without really checking assumptions. In your private lives, perfect job that you will choose when you don't have children and family is a different job that you will have when you have those responsibilities. People talk about work-life balance. I don't know that such thing exists. It did not exist for me. We all are trying to negotiate many different responsibilities, children, aging parents, sick partners, and those are going to imply that whatever you're assuming may not work at a different point of time. So check your assumptions and think about adjusting your expectations of yourself so that you can be kind to yourself as you move through what life really looks like. And don't beat yourself up if you're not able to get everything done on your to-do list. I know that for some of my students in the last few weeks, they were negotiating children, they were negotiating financial responsibilities, job markets. It is difficult, and you need to be kind to yourself when life is difficult. And don't expect that you're going to be delivering everything at a gangbusters kind of level. When I had two small kids, I was not pulling long days the way I do now when they are grown up. It's just try to be kind to yourself. 8, just because you're selling more doesn't mean you're making money. For success of the business in the long run, focus on profitability. When you think of yourself, what are your long run metrics of success? How will you say and how will you measure yourself that you have succeeded? It's not all about money, as we all know in private lives. What will be an expectation that you have for yourself? That you raised your children well, that you were a person of integrity, that you contributed to your community. Think of all of those other metrics that make life what it is and that give you richness in life at the end of the day. But have metrics, have expectations of yourself. So we all respond to incentives. You will all respond to incentives if you haven't already. In organizations, we talk about alignment of the incentives as one of the aspects that is super challenging, especially as the organizations grow. For you yourself, know what drives you. And everything is so much more fun when you're in the place that is a place where you enjoy what you're doing, where you walk to work with passion, with excitement, and with enthusiasm. So I hope you find that place in your life. Even if you don't find it immediately, have that goal because something else might happen down the road. But understand or try to figure out what that place is. It is a very, very rich life when you're able to do in life what your passion, where your passions are. Okay. And the last one, of course, for an economist, I have to say that every economic choice always involves an opportunity cost, or what every chicken on the road knows, there is no free lunch, is what every economist would go about saying. But what I would really like you to think of at a personal level, is to think about time as a precious resource. Time is always scarce, and we could always use more time. You have today, and you don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. So use today to be everything that you can be. Whether, economy sucks right now and the job market sucks, but you still have an opportunity to make something that would be more than what it is if you don't take the advantage of the time. Treat time as your most precious possession that you have. Do not take it for granted. And with that being said, the class of 2020, BAPs and MBAs, congratulations, and it's been a pleasure to be your professor.
Thank you. Yay. Today and events like this are my incentive points for my job. So thank you, Lydia. I am pleased to get to hear you talk anytime I can. And I know the class of 2020 agrees. All right, our next faculty lecturer is Professor Jack McCarthy. I am going to hand it over to Jack right now, and we will hear from him.
Thank you, Katie. Let me share my screen. Bring up my slides. How's that? Can we see that?
That looks great.
Okay, well, thank you all. If we do run into pixelation problems, I have a PDF version of a smaller size. I have a ton of pictures, but first I wanted to thank you all that it is an honor to be here today, to be selected to speak here with my colleagues. Thank you all. Jay, Lydia, Anirudh, and Jerome, congratulations to you. To be part of this celebration for this difficult year is an amazing accomplishment. It's been an incredible year. And lastly, and most importantly, we're here to celebrate the graduates. Our graduate school is an amazing place for learning and discovery, and to have this particular year happen and to see the resilience that we saw was really energizing and inspiring. And that's really the theme of my talk here today, this notion of living on the edge and life on the edge. And so I'll start with a common slide that once again, this VUCA notion that we live in volatility, we live in ambiguity, and it's all around this broader issue of how do we cope with change and how do we live in that moment. And as someone who studies leaders and leadership, this has been sadly a brilliant test of that for this past year. We think about the way we've managed and led in the past. We've shifted from thinking about how do we bring order to the world to, I think, something broader. That how do we create, how do we acknowledge, and how do we empower? And in my classes, we spend a lot of time trying to parse out some of the differences between management and leadership, where management is the process of bringing order to situations, where leadership is really about bringing change. And I sometimes talk about the tension in a bicycle wheel, that we need to be both good managers and good leaders. And that becomes a struggle when things like this happen. And you think about what happened to us the week before spring break, and to be at Olin and seeing your faces and to see what happened to disrupt this spring semester after really an incredible 2 years of discovery for our graduate class and certainly the MSCL students that I was meeting with that day. It became a disruptive action. And we think about our responses to threats. We can fight, we can freeze, or we can flee. And what did we do, and how do we understand the way to deal with complexity and change? Is it innate? Is it something we grow? And we spent a lot of time in my classes talking about these meta competencies, that our sense of awareness and what impels us towards achievement and being aware of the moment, in combination with our flexibility to deal with change and to deal with disruptive and to deal with different perspectives. One of my colleagues, Eliza Ryan, uses this metaphor of a tree that under stress and uncertainty, we need to root down and branch out to become stronger so that we're able to bend and deal with greater forces. My own research talks about the balance between identity, this larger notion of self-awareness and how we go about the world, and adaptability, being able to change and take on new skills and new ways of living and new ways of being in the face of such change. One of my colleagues, a CEO from Nepal, talks about this pandemic being something that has caused us uniquely to reflect on our past and future, probably like never before, and also has brought us time to think about this new normal, that there's been a pausing, And it's forced us to really evaluate what's important to us. And so as we start to go forward, I want to think about the past and the present. And some of you who've been in my classes know that I'm a bit of a thief and collector of images. So I've got a lot of photographs that I'll go through fairly quickly here to talk about the types of things that are important today to leave you with. And one is to remember that you and the times will change, and that this is a unique time. And these wedding singers in 1958 went on to be a pretty important global phenomenon later in their careers. And that this young lawyer in South Africa, M.K. Gandhi at the time, grew up to be someone who went to change the world. This young naval officer, John F. Kennedy, in heading up PT 109, became a very charismatic and important president during a crazy time of change. This actor, Morgan Freeman, started out on a TV show called The Electric Company, and we recognize him today as being one of the most prolific actors of our generation. This young dude later went on to be quite an important man in our history, President of the United States, and his vice president, who's now running for election in the upcoming election. And we just see the youth in their faces. And this young couple making their way in the world, Bill and Hillary later went on to lead our nation. Supreme Court Justice, Sonia Sotomayor, the first Latin woman to become the Supreme Court Justice. And all these images to think about how we change in the moment. And Greek philosopher Heraclitus talked about we can never step in the same river twice, because the second time through it, we've changed and the river has changed. I showed industry titans and this remarkable picture of Bill Gates. And I couldn't help but say he looks the same today. Like he hasn't changed that much in all those years since 1977. And Mark Zuckerberg, actually, that is him today. He still looks like a kid, even though he's a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. And someone who graduated from Babson, his MBA, many years ago, wearing, I guess, what was a Prince Valiant haircut at the time. I think back about my career and what brought me here to today. That many things are the same as they ever were. And when I teach leadership, I talk about the timelessness of leadership as well as the timeliness. And these are incredible signs, incredible times, and to look for the signs of what lies ahead. And if we don't pay attention, then we're not able to make change. And we think about what's happened over the last several months. You probably saw in the news that Uber laid off 3,500 office people on a Zoom call. And you think about the impact to those lives and how to use technology, and were there better ways to do that, and how do we respond to crisis? Just last week, an ice cream shop opened up on Cape Cod here in Massachusetts, and they had to close the next day because the customers became so abusive towards the staff because of social distancing. This newscaster who became somewhat famous or infamous because he didn't realize the camera caught the fact that he had no pants on. He was wearing shorts while he was broadcasting on television, and to be aware of our surroundings. The CEO from Ireland who would set up reading time to work with with kids of his employees of his companies to connect with their families. And so there are positives and negatives to the ways in which this coronavirus has affected us and the ways that we've adapted. And you think about what happened to you as Babson students going from the lawn to the desktop, and to think about the ways in which the university will change and the way we learn change. And I hope for the better to combine these technologies. What's happened to air travel, and this is predicting already a cumbersome process that when we do return to international travel, it's likely to be a 4 or 5 hour process to get on a plane. And when we do get on a plane, what is it going to look like? Here's one engineer's a diagram of some type of seating that reverses the ways in which we sit so we can social distance to create these chambers. And we think about that. And I saw this picture and I thought, what is she smiling about? This is terrible to be jammed in there like gerbils. And travel is so hard. And what's that going to look like? This summer, we may need to reserve the beach like we do seats in a movie theater, and to carve out spaces. And what does that mean for the way we celebrate nature? Even McDonald's. forcing us to line up in circles to get our Happy Meals. And me in my basement thinking about how do I use technology for entertainment and not being able to find a TV show to watch by flicking through Netflix for hours and hours and hours and never really landing. And following the right directions and getting the right signals so we know which way to turn even when we get the wrong direction. And maybe spending too much time thinking about what others are doing and not focusing on what's important to us. These are some of the lessons that I thought of, and I couldn't help but think, is time passing us by? That one impact of something like the coronavirus is it's a catalyst for change, to not let us grow stagnant and to let the world grow around us, but to think about ways that we can change and the way that we can grow. And this metaphor of carrying more than our own weight and working together and collaborating through difficulty so that we're able to overcome it. And using tools and technologies to innovate and to think about problem solving and more creative and with more ingenuity. To stretch ourselves, to think about ways that we can achieve our goals by doing things and building new skills that we didn't have before, while all the time remembering who we are, what we are, and what's important to us. As Dean Roleg says every day during when he's here on campus and during his videos, to seek joy in what we do, to think about the ways in which we can embark on the world of discovery. And when we visit with others and we visit them and we think about differences, we do so with grace and dignity. And yet to know the world is a dangerous place and to understand the world is full of risks. And sometimes those risks aren't clear to us. Knowing that it is a new day and every day is a new day. And this metaphor of dawn breaking on the great city of Shanghai, and you think about what does the future hold? And to keep perspective, this is Manhattan from the International Space Station, to remember to keep perspective in what we're doing, even when that perspective kind of surprises us, the wonder of nature and what that means, and how as a species, we make our way around the world and we deal with change and we deal with conflict and we deal with inequities. And how will we bring change? And how will we interact with others? And what is it that makes our world beautiful? And what will come back? What habits, what ways of life, what wonder will change or be the same as we move on our road to discovery? And to think about the ways in which we are going to go forward with your Babson degree, to be entrepreneurial leaders, to think about the ways in which the world is different and beautiful and frightening and challenging, all at the same time, as we modernize and as we think about old ways and old means to use technology to bring commerce and places of worship that are grand and not so grand, all of which are important to us. And this is our legacy. This is what we want to do. This is the way in which we think about how people come together. In the last 10 years, we became an urban species. More people live in cities than in countryside than the history of the human race. That's happened just over the past 10 years. It's predicted that in 20 years, 75% of people will live in urban dense areas. What does that mean for poverty? What does that mean for inequity? What does that mean for food distribution? And how do we make our ways into desolate places in the world by ourselves and with others? These are some of the messages that I tried to talk about in my courses on leadership and self-development, to think about how we discover ourselves and how do we deal with change at the same time, to help craft beauty in a crazy place, and to think about what does the future hold? How will I work? How will I make my way in the world? And how will I bring value to society at large? Will we have this again? Will we see this density, this way of life? This is the image from New York City. Or will it be more like this during the change we saw just over the last month? Empty streets and people scurrying, seeking out family members to make sure they were well. This is what we've lived through. These are our moments. And yet throughout them all, there is this human spirit And how do we think about how to help each other? How do we support each other? How do we find ways to be human? This is one of the most famous images in the world, the blue marble, to think about our planet as an ecosystem and what damage we're doing to it. And how do we create a world that's better for our grandchildren and the people who come after us, despite this crisis? Will this crisis be a wake-up moment for us to think about how to do what's important? Each of the speakers before me, Lydia, Jay, as well as Lauren, talked about following what's important. Kurt Vonnegut said a number of years ago, I want to stand as close to the edge as I can without going over. Out on the edge, you can see all kinds of things you can't see from the center. We want you to go to the edge. We want you to think about how to take Babson's message of entrepreneurial leadership to all parts of the world, to the wealthy, to the poor, to the weak, to the strong. That's our message. There are 3 simple rules in life. Number 1, if you do not go after what you want, you'll never have it and you may never get it. Go after what's important. Seek what's important to you. 2, if you do not ask, the answer will always be no. I've built a career on asking for forgiveness rather than permission. Take risks. Stretch yourself. Try. 3, if you do not step forward, you'll always be in the same place. Think about change as a way to grow, as a way to learn, to move past VUCA to VUCA prime, to shift from thinking about volatility to one of vision, to think about uncertainty as understanding, complexity, seeking clarity, and ambiguity, agility. And we think about the ways in which this VUCA prime world is actually wonderful in a literal sense, to seek wonder, to think about how we can enact our vision with clarity and understanding through our agility and our resilience. From the Latin resiliere, to bounce back from adversity, to fail well, as they say in Silicon Valley. One of my dear friends, Eliza Ryan, a great teacher, actor, and mentor and coach. This crisis, this change, these times, this is our invitation to find ways to safely turn towards the discomfort we may feel, to let it inform us, to sit with it and let ourselves be changed by it so that we can create a new world that truly works for everyone and everything. To think about using change and stress and complexity for the positive. Instead of engaging our threat response, engage the curiosity response. Seek discovery through that. In our classes, in my classes, we talked about the Japanese notion of ikigai. Seek that center between what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. And to strive towards that center. Those circles are pivoting, they're changing over the course of your life, but to strive towards that as your true north, to move towards that center. To think about how to be leaders, how to carry the message of Babson, the great MSEL cohort of 2020. We had a happy hour online, and it was an amazing way just to connect with people. Continue the happy hour. Think about ways to connect people. Welcome to the rest of your life. You're living on the edge. It can be frightening, it can be terrifying, but it also can be wonderful. Congratulations, and thank you for everything to the awesome class 2020.
Thank you, Jack. What a beautiful message. I so appreciate that. And I know to share another beautiful message with us, I am pleased to invite Anirudh Debar, Professor Anirudh Debar, to offer some words to you as well.
Thank you, Kate. So Jay began by saying how he loves PowerPoint slides, And I hate PowerPoint slides. Having said that, however, I'm going to now share PowerPoint with everybody. So first of all, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon, those in the United States, in North America, in Latin America. Good evening to those in India, and good night to those in Thailand and further to the east. Whatever time you might be at, hello, welcome, and thank you for being with us. Thank you for being with us, and thank you also for nominating, whether it be Jay, whether it be Lydia, whether it be Jack, whether it be me, for sharing with you our thoughts in the penultimate lecture, but also congratulations and thank you, Jerome, for being with us as well. More than anything else, I want to thank you personally. I want to thank all of you for the co-learning we've had during our stay at Babson. As I was preparing for this talk, I realized that today, May 14th, is just 2 days over 2 months since I was last on campus. And I still remember distinctly all the students I saw at Babson on that Thursday, May 12th, before we said goodbye, and that was it. And indeed, my last class was on May 10th, face to face, and I still regret never having had an opportunity to say goodbye in person. Hopefully, we'll meet later in September or whenever in the fall or sometime during our lives together. So, as you might notice here, the presentation here is titled STBS Newsletter. So, this is the last newsletter you'll be getting from me, if you will. Let me make sure that I have. So, as a newsletter, and you got this every Friday. So, this is what I saw yesterday, and I thought about it. This was on the BBC World News, and it is the 13th of May, Global Questions. I don't know if any of you have seen this program or not, but I love this program because it gets me to think about global questions. Global questions, not just geographically global, but I hope more to the point, global in terms of how you think about things. Meta, not just geography, but in a meta sense, what are some of the questions that we should be asking and perhaps challenge with trying to respond to? So one of the things you heard me say in class is what I love in particular is the squirming discomfort of the question. The squirming discomfort of the question. So right now I'm going to give you 10 seconds. Take a piece of paper, if you will, and just write down what you believe is a global question. What you believe is a global question. You want to share with us, but I think it's something you can take with you as you leave Babson. What is a global question that you believe we must wrestle with? 10 seconds. So, if there is a global question that you have, in response to that, you should be asking a global question for yourself. How do I best prepare myself and my enterprise to thrive in tomorrow's world? How do I best prepare myself and my enterprise to thrive in tomorrow's world? Can you hear me? Okay. So, not survive, not just to hang on, but to truly, truly thrive. Not yesterday, not even today, but in some world of tomorrow. Now, you shall see in this next slide, the word world now has been made into a plural. I have no clue what tomorrow's worlds might be. I know what today's world is, at least I can see what I can see, but tomorrow's world, I have no clue. For those tomorrow's worlds, whatever they may be, we have some advice in terms of how we might be able to react. That future has several names. For the weak, it is impossible, and I hope you will never, ever, ever, ever be weak. For the faint-hearted, it is unknown, and Jay, I'm sure, can share with us lots of thinking about unknowns and knowns. I also want to add to that the unknowable, not just the unknown, but the unknowable. For the faint-hearted, that world of tomorrow, it is unknown. But for the valiant, it is ideal. The valiant, it is ideal. And our hope for you is that you will be valiant through your lives. Well, here are some maxims for the value, for those who are valued, that you should never leave with. Okay, so the first maxim: the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. It's easy to buy a ticket to go somewhere. These days, you can't go anywhere, you're sitting at home, but it's easy to do that. It's much, much, much more difficult to have new eyes. That is the work you have to do on yourself. How do you develop new eyes? Not just go the expedient route of seeking new landscapes. There's an essay I saw recently, 2 years ago now, in the Wall Street Journal by Walter Isaacson, who had written a biography of Leonardo da Vinci. And he talked about three things I think are useful to keep in mind. How can you be wildly imaginative, quirkily curious, and willfully observant? Not easy to do. Wildly imaginative, quirkily curious, and willfully observant. This is something that we would all urge of you as you go forth in your lives. An alum from now 14 years ago, Conrad Chuang, who graduated Babson, shared with me this in class that I've never forgotten. Be prepared to wander in order to learn how to wonder. This is not a typo. A Microsoft Word will accept both words. Be prepared to wander in order to learn how to wonder. You will have to do a lot of wandering. Only when you do that will you learn to wonder about some of the bigger questions. And finally, why do we do all this? In the spirit of exploring, combining, and transforming. Exploring, combining, and transforming. Now, what I do in my newsletters is introduce you to things that I've seen in the media that I find interesting, hopefully to share with you so that you might find them at least informing you, but more to the point, making you think. So, what I'm doing here in this talk is sharing with you everything I picked up from the media as a way of creating this newsletter to take you through a journey of what you can use as you go forth in life. So, yes, these maxims, great. And yes to the first maxim, yes to the second maxim, yes to the third maxim, yes to the fourth maxim. Yes, 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 and yes. But, as the old ABBA song goes, it's the rich man's world. Except it's a VUCA world, J. And H added, Jack, to what you had said earlier, not just VUCA, VUCA. I'm still thinking of this song. It's the rich man's world, ABBA song, but now it's a VUCA world that we have to kind of survive in and thrive in. So I turned to news stories from the last few days to kind of make a point. So I saw this last weekend. What we turn to when things fall apart. This is a program that I try and listen to every Sunday morning. It's a program called On Being. I don't know if any of you heard of it, but here's a quote here from Advice for Difficult Times. The only times, the only time we ever know what is really going on is when the rug's been pulled out and we can't find anywhere to land. We use these situations either to wake up or to put ourselves to sleep. At some level, this is a choice we have. The coronavirus and the challenges it presented to us, yes, things fell apart. The rug was pulled out from under our feet. We have a choice. We have a choice either to wake up or to put ourselves to sleep. That's a choice we have. My hope is that your choice will be to wake ourselves up. What do we do to wake ourselves up is the question. So, this appeared in the Financial Times last weekend. My newsletter continues. Coronavirus, a love letter to cleaning. Cleaning. Cleaning what? Your house. Now, many of us have the luxury of a maid or somebody coming in and cleaning our house. The correspondent in the Financial Times wrote this love letter to cleaning. Like so much during this strange pandemic era, my adventures in cleaning have forced me to ponder deeper things. Like what it really means to do hard physical labor for a living. Many of us have been fortunate. Many of us don't have to do hard physical labor for a living. We've been so fortunate and we have not done this for so long that we have forgotten what other people who have to do that have to go through. That is learning here. It's one thing to moonlight, it's another thing to work for decades on your feet. The people who come and clean our houses, clean parts of Olin Hall, serve us food, do things for us. They work for decades on their feet, without health care, without pension, or any real chance for upward mobility. I urge you to think of these people as you go forward in your lives. Never ever forget them. Lesson number one, if you will. This is something I saw last weekend in the Wall Street Journal. A great article, I thought, on the geometry of dresses and bodies. Our bodies are not flat two-dimensional things. For some of us, they have convexity. For some of us, they have concavity. Okay, but these are curvatures. Now try making a dress here, if you will, which is two-dimensional fabric to fit a three-dimensional body. It's not easy. And what can we learn? We can learn, if you will, the skills that I acquired as a mathematician. Even though you might not be a mathematician, there are still some skills that you might have acquired and you will need going forward. Skill number one, detailed analysis. You need to be careful. You need to do detailed analysis. Skill number two, an ability to be methodical. You will have to be methodical. Skill number three, patience with a process that might be slow. Okay. And skill number four, okay, you need to believe that you can understand a structure by careful study. Four skills: detailed analysis, an ability to be methodical, patience with a slow process, and a belief that you can understand the structure by careful study. These are skills you will need as you go forward. Then a few days later, the next story. This to me was wonderful. 7 tips for watching birds during a spring lockdown. So Jack, I don't have your photographs. So I got simple little drawings, if you will. Okay. But what is offered here in terms of 7 tips applied not just for watching birds, but for all the challenges you'll face in your lives. Skill number one, tip number one, notice those birds. The world is vibrant around you, but we are so busy running around, we are not available to notice. We have to notice. Okay. Second tip, if you will. Okay. You need to, my video was off, no wonder. Okay. Second tip, okay. You need to be able to listen. Don't be busy with all the noise around you. Just listen, listen, listen. Look for the bill, look for the distinguishing characteristics of a bird that is doing this interesting thing. More than anything else, think about what the bird might be doing. I'm reading right now a couple of books on mental models. Okay, you need a mental model so that you can think about what the bird is doing. Tip number five, watch the patterns. All those birds, given whatever they might be doing, there are patterns to them. Tip number 6, be curious. Be curious, be curious. Tip number 7, draw, write notes, etc. Now, yes, this is for a bird. The 7 tips, I would argue, apply for so many different things you can do as the world is falling apart around us. Just remember and remind yourself to practice these 7 tips. Then going forward, the next article showed up on my in my newspaper. Okay, budding hope in hard times. Now, the last time I read William Wordsworth was over 50 years ago when I was in high school. And I'm so grateful to the Wall Street Journal for reintroducing William Wordsworth to me last Saturday. The poem is I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margins of a bay. Then thousands saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. Poetry is a wonderful thing to turn to. Between now and forever, find a minute or two or 5 or 10 just to read poetry, and it will serve you well. Moving closer towards the present, the following article appeared in the Wall Street Journal this past Monday. And to survive the pandemic, entrepreneurs might try learning from nature, it suggested. The article talked about 5 strategies that you observe in nature when species are challenged with hard times. Strategy number 1, find new opportunities to grow. Find new opportunities to grow. Strategy number 2, what we are all observing right now over the last couple of months, shut down and strengthen. Strengthen yourself for that future. Strategy number 3, take advantage of predators. We don't have to be the prey. We can take advantage of predators. Strategy 4, look for leftovers. Strategy 5, launch something new. I have no patience for strategy 4. It's a stupid little game for market share fighting over nibbles. Do not fight for leftovers. Think about something bigger that you can accomplish. And then finally today, Seth Godin sent out in my inbox a blog titled The Moral Imagination. It began, what do you dream of? Then it continued quickly to we have certainly established a profit imagination. Everywhere we turn, the P&L mindset isn't far away. Add a 0, that's winning. Or as Lydia said earlier, is it winning? Adding a 0 to your P&L, is it winning? But what about the moral imagination? Visualizing what's possible, deciding to do something about it, wondering to ourselves and then to the world, how can I make this better? Not because it's our job or because it will win a prize, simply because we can. What is our moral imagination? Now let me see if this works. What happened? Get up and dance. So what is your moral imagination? Is a question before you. So back to some suggested learning maxims. As Lydia said earlier, be careful how you define success. Be very, very careful how you define success. Is it one more zero or is it something else? And Jay talked about this earlier, be intentional. Be very, very intentional. At the same time, be open to the call to adventure. It won't necessarily announce itself, it will come along, but you have to be open to that call to adventure. For heaven's sake, do not refuse that call. Do not refuse that call. Make it your enterprise, your bold, momentous, but arduous undertaking. You owe it to yourself, and you owe it to the gift that you exist to make something your enterprise. All along, please remember. So now finally, one takeaway from my class. I've not talked about marketing, I've not talked about high technology, but here now you'll hear my one thing. T comes after S, not the other way around. First comes segmentation, only then comes target selection, not the other way around. That's it for marketing high-tech products. Don't take a photograph standing up. Never, ever take a photograph standing up. Why? Because everybody takes a photograph standing up. You have to change the perspective relative to others. Lydia talked about this earlier, about being unique. Somehow you have to be distinctive. And finally, something that my students have heard, everything you do and the way you did everything sends a message. Everything you do and the way you do everything sends a message. Make that message strong, exciting, distinctive, authentic, consistent, clear, incredible. Promise me that you will do these things. And then in closing, never ever be a nowhere person. To laugh is to risk appearing a fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out to somebody else is to risk involvement. To expose your feelings is to risk rejection. Place your dreams before the crowd is to risk ridicule. That I think I've just done. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To go forward in the face of overwhelming odds is to risk failure. But risks must be taken. The person who risks nothing, does nothing, has nothing, is nothing. He or she may avoid suffering and sorrow, but he or she cannot learn, feel, change, grow, or love. Chained by your certitudes, you become a slave. You forfeit your freedom. Only a person who takes risks is free. Do not be a noble person. So please, please, please do not be a nowhere person. Thank you for the journey together. Thank you for the co-learning over time. I apologize for having sent you those newsletters every Friday, whether you wanted them or not. You can be rest assured you will no longer receive them. As you graduate of Babson, those newsletters stop unless you want to receive them and let me know to that effect. But otherwise, they stop. So I apologize for having sent them to you. Hopefully they informed you. Hopefully, they made you more aware of the world, but more than anything else, hopefully, they made you think. I enjoyed our journey together. You learned something, I hope. I certainly did learn something, and I wish you the very, very best in whatever you do in life. But never ever forget, we always be here. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, Anirudh. And for the record, I never want to stop receiving the newsletters. I'm always and forever a subscriber.
Okay, I'm going to say, take me away so the sound stops.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
All right. And our next and final lecturer of today is your Kennedy Award winner, Jerome Tallard. And to give you a sense of the Kennedy Award, I'd like to read the description of the award that Jerome is being presented with. The Thomas Kennedy Award is presented to the professor who personifies teaching excellence at the graduate level and whose personal standards of quality and caring extend beyond the classroom. And as an example of Jerome's deserving of this award, I have a video to share with you, and I am going to give you that now. Okay. Delightful, right? Wonderful. And now it is time for your Kennedy Award winner, Jerome Tallard, to share his final thoughts, well, almost final thoughts with the class of 2020.
Thank you, Kate. Can you hear me? Everything set? Yeah?
Yes.
My slides good? Okay, great. Welcome everybody. It is so nice to see you all on the little screen there and to see you one last time before graduation this weekend. We miss you. We miss you a lot, and we hope you're okay. We hope you're doing well wherever you are. And from what I'm seeing, you're doing well. It's reassuring. and off we go. Let's do this. So first of all, obviously, congratulations. You did it, and it's been quite a journey, and I'll talk more about it towards the end of the talk, but we are super proud of you, and we can't wait to see what you're going to achieve. And please stay in touch as you head out and change the world. uh, Obviously, a big thank you. It's a huge honor to be this year's recipient of the Thomas Kennedy Award. I'm truly standing on the shoulders of giants here at Babson. As you know, you've seen so many amazing professors, and so to be singled out in this way is really a true honor. So thank you. And I will strive to be deserving of this award for years to come. I'm not taking my retirement. So both online and offline, I'll do my best to keep up the very high standards that you've grown accustomed to and that the next cohorts will expect from us. And although this is not the Oscars, I would like to thank a few special people, and I'm actually going to read. It's a bit emotional, but first of all, I'd like to thank my family, in particular my parents and my brother back in Switzerland, for their love and support over the years from a distance. Truly amazing. And of course, my partner in life, Madalena, for making my time on Earth that much sweeter, richer, and magical. Thank you. And of course, thanks to everyone at Babson, the entire staff, from the kitchens to CCD, all that you do for our students. And of course, to my colleagues. We've got such a remarkable talent pool here at Babson. Impossible to name them all. You know them, and but a big thank you for all your mentorship since I've joined Babson 5 years ago, and your friendship. And lastly, of course, the students, not just you guys, all of you, year after year, cohort after cohort, always eager to learn. You keep us energized and young. And the class of 2020 is special. We had a very special time together. I had all 3 sections, which was pretty unique. And I did feel I will never forget that experience. Pretty intense time together for sure. Some are laughing, but that's what makes the journey worth it. So off we go. Last lecture. And the theme is learning from mistakes. Sometimes it's kind of one of the main ways to learn also in life. Painful but useful. And so he who cannot does, he who cannot teaches. And JB, I'll attribute this one to JB, he who cannot teach teaches cases. So I'll talk about my investing experience. So let me share some lessons I learned the hard way as an investor. And so try and teach you a few things on that front so that you can avoid some of the costly mistakes I've made over the years. So lesson number 1, experts get it wrong often. And I'll just start off with an example. This is a nice figure from the oil markets. Let's put ourselves all the way back to 2014, when the price of a barrel of oil was 110, not quite where we are today. And what was the backdrop in summer 2014? Well, there were major tensions in Iraq. There was war in the north of Iraq, and most of the oil in Iraq is in the south, but still there was a lot of concerns. And so a lot of experts were quoted, and they were seeing that there would be a high risk of oil jumping if the situation in Iraq deteriorated. And turns out this didn't happen. So in the yellow band there that you see, the threshold from 90 to 102, 1 quarter out, 2 quarters out, 3 quarters out, etc., etc. Basically, the forecast by the top analysts on Wall Street 2 years out were within a tight band of $90, $85 to 110, basically. And the reality was quite different. And so what's interesting is, well, it's challenging. Why were they so wrong? Well, it's a complex supply and demand balance that determines prices. And one thing that, with hindsight, the beauty of hindsight, we all saw coming, was the shale revolution in the US. And what could happen in Iraq actually was pretty minor in comparison to this gigantic oversupply in the world market of oil, where you see that the US was producing 6 million barrels of oil per day and basically doubling it in the next 10 years. This is an incredible, disruptive, cataclysmic change in the oil markets, and something that up to 2014 was not at all reckoned by all the market participants, including all the world experts in the matter. So it's interesting, and they got it wrong ever since. The oil price has crashed. They first expected a sharp rebound. Never happened. And then, what happened since then? The forecast always in a very tight range, around $50, $60 a barrel, where we were for the last 2 or 3 years. Yet oil has moved around considerably. And in December 2019, the last forecast, I would say, before the world, as we knew it, changed, the most bearish investment banks on Wall Street, Societe Generale, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, Citigroup, they were the most bearish, and they forecasted Brent prices to go down to the $50 range. And if you follow a bit the market, we recently did below 30. And WTI actually not only went to 0, it actually went negative. And that's a special story. Brent is the oil prices set globally. But even there, they were completely off. And now you might say, well, Jerome, oil is a very complicated, specific market here. So, is it always like that? Well, in finance, I can show you many, many, many examples. The bond market in 2019, again, January 2019, Wall Street Survey of Economists. What's the forecast for the yield curve? Well, interest rates were expected to go up. The economy in the US was booming. The Fed had started raising interest rates, and people thought, well, it's kind of the continuation. That's what we expect to happen. Completely wrong. Interest rates have cratered since then. They're now almost at 0.5%. The stock market, a very recent example. You see this beautiful drop there from 3,200 all the way down to 2,200 in less than a month, in about a month. Completely amazing drop. This article from March 23rd highlighted a few estimates from Credit Suisse, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America. Credit Suisse got it right, because that was kind of the last day where it went down. And after that day, it rebounded massively all through April. So again, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America had their forecast, and at least for now, we haven't met that forecast. But again, they're paid to put those forecasts out, and many people are paid to ask and give their opinions there. So be careful of so-called experts, the guys that you see on TV, not on WebEx, but on TV. And of course, you have your advisors, your experts, and so don't be lulled by their comforting words, including in this current market. Instead, I suggest you recognize the true randomness of life and markets. And I think that's an important lesson learned here. Okay, lesson 2. Investing should not be viewed as gambling, and vice versa. Okay, and people tend to confuse a bit the two, and I've been at fault of that, certainly. And one of the mistakes we do is that we dabble in individual stocks. Okay, so we love, like, we have a passion for Tesla, for Apple, Amazon, you name it. But one thing is for sure, the volatility of individual stock is much, much greater than the volatility of the markets overall. And I'll give you one example, a blue chip, a stock that would please even your grandparents who are not who are very risk averse, and they'll say Caterpillar, a blue chip conglomerate, market cap $70 billion, as safe as they come, no? And they're doing well. Q2 2018 beat analyst expectations. Second quarter profit was more than double that of the same quarter last year. Equipment sales are 25% due to rising demand, natural gas, oil mining company, as well as Chinese construction companies. Amazing. Oh, you're so smart. You really picked a good one here. Actually, turns out the stock went down relative to the S&P 500 over this period. You see that, interestingly, Caterpillar and S&P was, so S&P 500, I'll talk about it, is this big cap index, the 500 largest firms publicly traded in the US. And you see that Caterpillar and the S&P were actually moving pretty much in lockstep. But then, even though Caterpillar was doing extremely well operationally, they suffered a dislocation relative to relative to the market overall. And interestingly, since then, well, the S&P is up a bit more than 5% since that time, 2 years ago. So we're still up relative to 2 years ago, believe it or not. But Caterpillar is down a further 20% since then. And this is not a fly-by-night operation. This is not the small stock you learned about through your crazy friends in the chat room. You know, this is Caterpillar. And so this is interesting. And basically, if that's what you do, I suggest you diversify. And actually, Lydia, I agree with you. There's no free lunch there's no free lunch in this world except one, and that's the one that's given by diversifying. And so I truly suggest that you consider that as a way of not putting all your eggs in the same basket. You're already highly concentrated in terms of risk taking, whether you're going to launch your business, whether you're going to run your family business, or just being dependent on your employer keeping your job safe. You know, so your human capital is at risk. Why then put your hard-earned savings at risk also? So diversify is really the way to go. So now you might say, well, yeah, okay, great, but how? Well, defining the S&P 500 as one of the many market indices out there, which basically measures the value-weighted performance of the largest 500 US firms, you can actually mimic the performance, you can replicate the performance of the entire index at a very low cost. That's really important, very low cost, through mutual funds, what we call passive mutual funds or index funds, like the Vanguard 500 index, or an ETF like the SPY. So it can be done, and you should do it. Lesson number 3, stocks can be freaking volatile in the short term. Okay, so I already told you not to do individual stocks, but I know you're not fully listening to my advice yet. And so you might gamble on a little earnings call here, whether it's Facebook or any other company. And I use the word gamble, I think, appropriately. You see this chart there, it's 4 p.m. Many firms in the US report right after they close the earnings numbers. And you see that Facebook in July of 2018 dropped a cool 20% in 5 minutes. Okay, so as soon as they announced earnings, it was not good. They massively disappointed the markets. And if you had put all your eggs in Facebook, you would have lost 20% of that value right there, right then. It's recovered. It's about at the same level right now. But that just shows the volatility here in the short term, and also the well-diversified indices. And we just went through that in a very shocking way. And you see that the S&P 500, which I mentioned, the Nasdaq, the Dow Jones, these big, you know, market indices in the US have basically dropped more than a quarter in less than 2 months, which is pretty shocking. Okay. So what do you do? What do you do from this lesson? What's the action item? Well, you put time on your side. So here, this is a slide from Patrick Gregory's talk, Finance Fridays. I hope you've watched them. They're all online on the Cutlass Center website. We did one a week, finished last Friday. You have to go and see the videos if ever they're there. And he used this chart to kind of put things in context. Yes, we are in the midst of a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. There's often once-in-a-lifetime events, actually. We go through them quite a bit. There's some interesting issues that have come along the way, but over time, the index has just forged ahead. Alan Greenspan in 1996 famously quoted the market as being irrationally exuberant. I wish we could go back in time and I'd load up on that irrationally exuberant market because that would be worth a lot right now. And so this is something to consider, and putting your time on your side is something that I highly, highly recommend for you guys. So again, how? Well, it's good news. Most of you, I look at the screens, you know, you look, you're still pretty young. Okay, so that's good. It's good. You can buy and hold. Just buy and hold. And on top of that, if you do that, you enjoy compounding returns. Huh? That's the beauty of the law of compounding returns over time. It sounds so easy. It's actually not. It's actually not. It's shocking. Peter Lynch, who launched the Cutlass Center a few months ago, famously generated 29% annualized returns with his Magellan fund. And as Patrick Gregory on the picture highlighted, there's a shocking statistic that showed that the average investor in the fund actually lost money. That is kind of remarkable here. And so what's happened? Well, because, well, people insisted on trading. Okay, so a golden rule fit for a king or a queen: buy low and sell high. Pretty tough. This is so easy to say. It is so hard to actually do. Okay, so it's an easy one for me to say, but it's pretty hard to do. Actually, if you look at the data, people tend to do exactly the opposite. Okay, this is kind of interesting, and it's the classic fear and panic versus greed. And so this is data from the last major recession we had in 08, 09. And you see that people, as the stock was going up right up to the beginning of 2008, people were piling up money in mutual funds. And when we went through the crash, you see that people started withdrawing, selling. They basically sold all the way down. And then only when the market rebounded, well, then when it went back up, then people started to have a bad case of FOMO, and that's when they started buying again. And so this is kind of interesting, and you see that behavioral biases can really trip you up on this one. So again, the danger of wanting to trade here. So if we still want to do that, if you can't do for some reason buy and hold, one of the recent suggestions by Jason Zweig, a Wall Street Journal columnist, talked about, think of finding an allocation that suits your need. It depends on how long you have to go, you know, are you close to retirement? There's some tax considerations maybe, but imagine you do a 30% in bonds, 70% in equity allocation. Well, he suggests that you rebalance back to that after significant deviations. So how would that work? Well, imagine stock prices crash. Okay, so stock market crash, and now your bonds are 50% of your portfolio value, and equities are all the way down to 50% of your portfolio. So to rebalance back to the 70-30 threshold, you need to buy stocks, and you're going to buy them low, and you have to sell bonds, you're going to sell them high in order to go back up to the 70-30. So in some sense, you have to view this as a commitment device. Okay. And again, the commitment device will help you avoid these kind of behavioral biases that we are all, trust me, all open a trading account, start trading. We are all susceptible to these biases. Okay. So there's also a few indicators that might be useful. They're quite popular and you hear about them. And if you look again, the beauty of hindsight, you can kind of look at what happened in the last few decades or last century. The famous Shiller PE, or cyclically adjusted P ratio of the entire market. You see that this ratio did highlight a couple of bubbles along the way. So that's kind of an indicator of valuation and where they're at. And my colleague Luke Stein, who made an amazing presentation on volatility in the Finance Fridays, I took one of his figures as he was talking a lot about the VIX index. And what you see is that each time the market, quote unquote, panicked, and the fear index, the VIX, the measure of volatility of the market, went haywire, in particular in 0809, and recently, those were actually nice buy signals if you had the courage, the gumption to jump in when everybody was selling. So again, that's why it's pretty tough to do the buy low, sell high, and hopefully, if you really insist on that, there's a few tips here, but hopefully you'll stick to the buy and hold strategy. So lesson number 4. Overconfidence can be dangerous. So don't attempt this at home, okay? Poor cow. I think it's a fictitious picture. No cow was harmed in this footage. But we're all susceptible to it, and success breeds overconfidence. And here, a classic example of someone who's invested in Tesla and thinks that this is going to go to the moon might be true. Could be the next winner, or it could be the next epic crash. Okay, we don't know. It's kind of these figures are kind of interesting. Tesla is kind of the 2020 equivalent of Qualcomm. Qualcomm is the big device producer for basically every cell phone on this planet. And you see that in 99, 2000, the tech bubble, it also went vertical. And it took 20 years for it to recover its all-time high. It did, because it was an amazing company, and still is. But it crashed to the ground after the tech bubble. Tesla probably will be around in 20 years. But the valuation has gone pretty high here. Again, I'm not going to judge it. You be the judge of it. But it's worth more than Ford, GM, and Fiat Chrysler combined. So valuation is quite high. And before you call your broker to sell, remember this famous quote by Keynes, who said that markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. And so it's a beautiful quote, and certainly one that I've experienced. And that leads to action item number 4: do not use leverage. Okay. And Sir Roger Babson felt so strongly against using debt in stock investments that he carved it in stone for the ages. This stone is on campus. Next time you make your way back to Wellesley, you'll try and go and look out for that stone. But basically, in practice, it means avoid margin accounts, avoid short positions, and avoid speculative derivatives. All of these products entail leverage, either explicitly or implicitly. And some do it, but again, that exposes you to some serious losses if things don't go your way. And again, the markets can be irrational longer than you can be solvent. So last lesson number 5, we do not know the future. Okay, it's the beauty of this. I guess that's why we're all trying to guess. We all think we do somehow. We have this kind of sense of magic. We all think we know which firm is going to be the next Apple. But as shown earlier, even the experts are spectacularly wrong when it comes to predicting the future, almost always. And so, is the COVID play going to continue? You saw gaming stocks going through the roof. Huh? People are stuck at home, and you start doing gaming, you start doing some online retailing. These are big new trends. Could either industry produce the next Apple? It's possible. It's possible. But the odds of finding the next Apple are next to zero. Okay, this is a shocking study by Henrik Besson-Binder in the JFE 2017. He literally shows that most stocks end up worthless over their lifetime as a public firm. Okay, it's the Schumpeterian economy where the new replace the old. And basically, he shows that there's only 4% of companies that make all the market performance over time. And so you're much more likely to buy the next lemon than the next apple. Okay. So what's interesting is that, however, by construction, the S&P 500 has found Apple, and will find the next one. What do I mean by that? Well, this is the money shot from this whole talk. And I was pretty happy to find Bloomberg, who kind of highlighted, it didn't highlight this, what I'm going to talk about, but I think this figure is phenomenal. If you look at this figure, what does it show? It shows the weight in the S&P 500 of Apple in white, Microsoft in blue, ExxonMobil in red, and G in purple. And if you told me that as a portfolio manager, this is how you played it, and this is how you allocated your weights in those 4 companies, I'd be impressed. Everybody would be impressed. Like, wow, you kind of saw the rise of Apple, you started loading up on it. Microsoft, you had a lot of it, you reduced your exposure, and as it exploded in the last 5 years, you ran it up also in your portfolio. ExxonMobil and GE, you kind of sensed that it was the old economy and that oil and gas is maybe an industry of the past, not the future. And you started lowering the weight. I would say pretty brilliant. And that by construction, the S&P 500 does it for you because it's value weighted. So it will always load up on the stocks that are becoming more and more valuable. And as they become less valuable, they start underweighting them. And then they even get rid of the losers. This is, sorry to say, Sears, but you got kicked out of the S&P 500 in 2012, and you're now worthless. The stock of Sears is worthless, and the S&P 500 doubled over that same time period. And so again, the index will kind of do a lot of work for you. And so if you go into the financial industry, of course, you're going to do that work. You're an analyst, you're going to help price discovery, you're going to talk to the CEOs, you're going to do the industry analysis and really come up with the next winners. But if you are busy launching your business, running the family business, and you have some spare cash and you want to invest it, well, the index will do a pretty good job for you. And so in conclusion, for my investment tips of the day, okay, you don't know when investments will do well. And so if you don't know, just buy and hold. You don't know which investments will do well. So I suggest you diversify. And there are simple investment strategies that can help with both. Okay, long-term index investing, simple rebalancing rules over time, and dollar cost averaging, which is what everybody does in the US by contributing every month to your 401k plan. Every month you are investing over time. And so you're going to buy low, you're going to buy high, you're going to spread your investments. And again, you're going to just hold it till retirement. And in some sense, that does a lot of the tricks of what I suggest you should do under point 1 and 2. So again, do as I say, not as I do. I haven't followed this fully, and I've paid the price for it. So I hope you will listen to this advice, and maybe I'll have to make a few mistakes of your own to learn, but that's fine, it's life. But hopefully this will help. Okay, so ultimately, now back to big picture. We went deep into finance. Let's step back a minute. So This is a famous quote. I love this quote by Howard Marks, a very famous hedge fund manager, founder of Oak Tree Capital. We may never know where we're going, but we'd better have a good idea of where we are now. So where are you? Okay, where are you? Well, I think you're in a very good spot. Okay, you just, you're not an overconfident bunch of young people. You all know exactly where you're going. You have no debt. You didn't put all your eggs in one basket. No, none of the above. No, I know you took a huge gamble. You came to Babson, and you got this degree. And some of I understand you got yourself into debt, and you made big sacrifices to come and learn. But don't sell yourself short. Okay, by choosing to come to this world-class institution, you've actually invested in yourself. You made the most investment possible. You've built your human capital. Okay? And in doing so, again, you've become a more valuable asset to your family, to your society, and to the world. And looking at you guys and having gotten to know you a bit more, what can I say? I think you've got skills. I mean, this is some might remember. I don't know if you had some therapy to forget about this, but this was from your 4-hour short final exam in finance, where you had to forecast 5 years out in Excel. 7 weeks before that, some of you had never touched Excel nor had learned about finance. So if you can do that in 7 weeks, I think you're in pretty good shape here. You can certainly learn and be serious, and I've seen that in the classroom. What I haven't seen much, but I've had some inside information, is that you know how to have fun. So that's important in life. Keep doing that. You've got style. You've got style here. You've got energy. You're full of energy. That's the beauty of youth. And you're global citizens. You've traveled the world. You come from all over. You're open to the world, open to new cultures and experiences. And that's going to be critical for you guys. And you can adapt to any climate. Okay, cold, hot. I didn't see any pictures of somebody at the top of that pyramid, but I'm sure you all did it after posing for that picture. But yeah, and you're a bit cold in that picture, but you're there at the end of the world there. And somehow, even when things look pretty dicey, you managed to find a way home there. So I'm pretty impressed here. So I ask only one last thing from you guys. One last thing from you guys before we call it a wrap here. And that is to commit to excellence. As you set sails to new and exciting destinations and endeavors, please set your compass on excellence. Okay, excellence can be reached. Okay, find your passion, cultivate it in a lifelong journey. Find your ikigai, if I understood that correctly from a previous talk. For me, excellence means reaching your full potential. Okay, so to get there, always aim for the highest quality in your work, in your friendships, in your partnerships. And when you strive for excellence, you become a force to be reckoned with in business. You also become a true friend and an amazing partner. And so, in my mind, excellence sets you apart. That is, ultimately, excellence will transcend you and establish and start building your own legacy. And so on that high note, that high hope we have for you, we really look forward to hearing all about the achievements to come. We stay in touch, please do. And take care, everyone. Take care of yourself, your family, your friends, and congratulations, you did it. Let's celebrate now one last time all together. And love you guys.
Thank you, Jerome. um, I Thank you so much. I agree. We should all celebrate one last time together. I am so delighted and impressed with all of you, as Jerome said, and excited to have all the opportunities to communicate and share with you that we can have going forward. I know we haven't even made it to the reception portion of the day yet, but I am going to share in the chat now a link to the faculty members who have agreed to share their rooms for us to get together in smaller groups and say hi. And you hopefully can join us in a few of those rooms. And it's also an editable document at this point, open to anybody with their babson.edu login. And if someone wants to add their personal WebEx room to the list and a link, feel free. We'll make the party grow. And I look forward to seeing you all in the future. And I am starting the toast for tomorrow just a smidge early. To you guys.
And thank you to all of you.
Absolutely. Please unmute yourselves for this round of applause.
I mean,